In a city buzzing with life, Ethan Cross, a former paramedic, wakes up to an unusual silence. His phone has multiple missed calls and alarming messages from his sister, warning him not to go outside. Confused, he steps onto his apartment balcony and sees something terrifying: cars abandoned in the streets, distant screams echoing, and figures stumbling unnaturally. Desperate for answers, Ethan turns on the TV, only to see emergency broadcasts repeating the same message: stay indoors. Avoid contact with the infected. News footage shows hazy images of people attacking each other, spreading an unknown infection that turns victims into something monstrous. The authorities have sealed off parts of the city, but it's unclear how far the infection has spread. The uneasy silence is shattered when Ethan hears frantic knocking at his door. His neighbor, an elderly man named Mr. Grayson, pleads for help. His wife, Mary, had gone outside early in the morning and never returned. He is terrified and insists that Ethan stay with him. Ethan hesitates, torn between helping the old man and securing himself. Before he can respond, a chilling scream erupts from the hallway. Peeking through the peephole, Ethan sees a woman being dragged to the ground by a man covered in blood. She thrashes violently, but her attacker bites into her shoulder, tearing flesh away. Her screams die out quickly. The man, if he can still be called that, slowly lifts his head, eyes devoid of humanity, mouth dripping with blood. Ethan backs away, his mind racing. This isn't a riot. This is something else, something worse. He locks the door and tells Mr. Grayson to stay quiet. The old man sobs, whispering his wife's name. Ethan needs to think fast. Supplies in his apartment are limited. If the city is as bad as it looks, staying put won't be an option forever. He checks his backpack: bottled water, protein bars, a flashlight, a first aid kit, and a small knife. He grabs his baseball bat from the closet. It's not much, but it's something. A crash from downstairs makes his blood run cold. The infected are inside the building. Footsteps shuffle in the hallway, moving toward his door. Ethan holds his breath, gripping his bat tightly. This is just the beginning. Survival won't be easy. Ethan's hands tightened around the baseball bat as the shuffling sounds outside his door grew louder. His pulse pounded in his ears. The infected were in the building. Mr. Grayson clutched his arm, his frail body trembling. "They're here," the old man whispered, his voice barely audible. Ethan knew staying inside wasn't an option. He peeked through the peephole again. The hallway was dimly lit, but he could make out shadows moving erratically. A man, no, a creature, staggered past his door, its bloodied fingers dragging across the wall, leaving smeared streaks of red. Ethan turned to Mr. Grayson. "We need to get out of here," he whispered. "Do you have anything useful? A weapon? Anything?" The old man shook his head. "Just my walking cane." Ethan bit his lip. That wouldn't do much against whatever was out there. He considered the fire escape, but his apartment was on the 5th floor. Climbing down wasn't impossible, but it was risky. The front door was out of the question. Too many of them. Suddenly, a loud crash came from downstairs, followed by a scream. Ethan stiffened. Someone was still alive down there. The scream turned into a gurgling cry, then silence. More infected were entering the building. His mind raced. He needed a plan, fast. Then, a new sound caught his attention. Footsteps, but not like the shambling ones of the infected. These were controlled, purposeful. Someone was coming up the stairs. Ethan grabbed Mr. Grayson and pulled him back into the shadows of the apartment. He held his breath as the footsteps stopped right outside his door. A soft knock. "Hello? Anyone alive in there?" A voice, calm, but urgent. Ethan hesitated. It could be a trap. "Please," the voice continued. "If you're human, open up. We don't have much time." Against his better judgment, Ethan unlocked the door but kept the bat raised. The door creaked open, revealing a woman in her early 30s, her face smudged with dirt and sweat. She wore a torn leather jacket, a knife strapped to her belt. Behind her stood a younger man, probably in his 20s, gripping a crowbar. "My name's Riley," the woman said quickly. "This is Joel. We're getting out of here. You coming or not?" Ethan narrowed his eyes. "How do I know you're not infected?" Joel scoffed. "Do we look infected?" Riley cut him off. "Listen, we don't have time for this. More of those things are coming. If we stay here, we're dead. There's an alley behind the building that leads to an old parking garage. We think it's mostly clear. But we have to go now." Ethan glanced at Mr. Grayson. The old man's eyes were filled with fear. "Could he keep up?" "We can't leave him," Ethan said firmly. Riley frowned. "He won't make it." Ethan stood his ground. "Then we find a way to help him." Riley sighed but didn't argue. "Fine. But if he slows us down too much, we move on." "Agreed?" Ethan didn't like it, but he nodded. "Let's go." They moved swiftly into the hallway. The infected were further down the corridor, their guttural growls echoing. One of them, a woman with half her face missing, turned her head toward them, sniffing the air. Then she shrieked. More heads snapped in their direction. "Move!" Riley hissed. Joel swung his crowbar at the first infected that lunged at them, caving in its skull with a sickening crunch. Ethan pulled Mr. Grayson forward, helping him along as fast as possible. The stairwell was blocked by more infected, forcing them to change direction. The fire escape. Ethan pointed. They burst into an empty apartment. Riley smashed the window open with her elbow. Below, the fire escape ladder was jammed. "Jump for it," Joel grunted, grabbing the edge and yanking it down with all his strength. The metal groaned as it finally slid into place. Riley climbed down first. Ethan helped Mr. Grayson onto the ladder, steadying him as he shakily descended. The infected reached the doorway. Their blood-stained hands clawed at the air. Joel swung his crowbar again, cracking another skull, but there were too many. Ethan didn't wait. He climbed onto the ladder and started down. Joel was the last one. As he turned to follow, a hand grabbed his ankle. He yelped, kicking wildly. The infected yanked hard, pulling him back. "No!" Ethan shouted. Joel struggled, his crowbar slipping from his grasp. The creature sank its teeth into his leg. He screamed. Without hesitation, Riley grabbed her knife and threw it. The blade buried itself into the creature's eye, and it collapsed. But it was too late. Joel panted, staring at the bite mark on his leg. "Shit!" Ethan met his gaze. They both knew what that meant. "We need to keep moving," Riley said, her voice tight. "Now." Joel clenched his jaw and nodded. "Yeah. Let's go." But Ethan knew. Joel didn't have much time. And soon, they would have another choice to make. Ethan, Riley, Mr. Grayson, and Joel hurried through the alley behind the apartment building, the sounds of the infected echoing behind them. The city was worse than Ethan had imagined. Cars were abandoned in the middle of the streets, buildings burned in the distance, and bodies lay motionless on sidewalks. Some of them twitched, making it impossible to tell who was truly dead and who was about to rise again. Joel limped slightly, his bitten legs slowing him down. He hadn't said a word since the fire escape. He knew what was coming. They all did. Riley glanced at him but kept moving. She led them toward an old parking garage, pausing only to check corners and listen for danger. "This place should be mostly clear," she whispered. "We can regroup here, figure out our next move." They stepped inside. The dimly lit structure smelled of oil and rot. Cars were scattered everywhere, their doors left open, as if their owners had abandoned them in a hurry. Ethan helped Mr. Grayson sit on the ground against a concrete pillar. The old man was exhausted, breathing heavily. I'm not used to running," he admitted. "You did good," Ethan assured him. Joel, however, didn't sit down. He leaned against a car, his face pale, sweat beading on his forehead. The wound was already taking its toll. Ethan met his gaze. How long do we have? Joel forced a chuckle. You asking me? Never been bitten before. His voice was weaker than before. I guess. I'll find out soon. A heavy silence settled between them. Then Riley spoke, her voice firm. We can't let it get to that point. Joel gave a short laugh. Yeah? You volunteering to do it? Riley's eyes darkened. If I have to. Ethan didn't like where this was going. He looked at Joel, then at Riley. We don't know how long he has. Maybe hours. Maybe more. We're not just. What? Riley cut in. Going to let him turn? And then what? He rips one of us apart before we even realize it's happening? Joel swallowed hard. He wiped his forehead with a trembling hand. She's not wrong, Ethan. He let out a deep breath. I don't want to become one of them. Ethan clenched his jaw. This wasn't fair. I'll do it myself, Joel added. Riley shook her head. No. I will. Joel looked at her, then smirked. Didn't know you cared. I don't, she said, but there was a flicker of something in her expression, respect, maybe. Ethan turned away, his stomach twisting. He barely knew Joel, but this still felt wrong. Just yesterday, Joel had been a survivor. A fighter. And now? Joel sat down on the hood of a dusty car. He pulled out a worn photograph from his pocket. Ethan caught a glimpse of a woman and a little girl. Joel stared at it for a moment, then folded it and slipped it back into his jacket. You do it fast, he said to Riley. She nodded. Joel exhaled, closing his eyes. All right. Let's get this over with. A single gunshot echoed through the parking garage. Mr. Grayson flinched. Ethan closed his eyes. When he opened them, Joel was gone. A lifeless body. A pool of blood spreading across the hood of the car. Riley stood over him, lowering the pistol. Her expression was unreadable, but Ethan saw the tension in her shoulders. She turned to Ethan. We need to go. He wanted to say something. To argue. To protest. But there was nothing left to say. They left the parking garage, stepping back into the ruined city. The streets were eerily silent, save for the occasional distant moan of the infected. They moved quickly, sticking to alleyways and side roads to avoid drawing attention. We need food and weapons, Riley said. We won't last long without supplies. There's a pharmacy a few blocks from here, Ethan said. Might be worth checking. Riley nodded. Fine. But we keep it quick. And quiet. They reached the pharmacy in under 10 minutes. The glass windows were shattered, and the inside was ransacked, shelves knocked over, medicine bottles scattered everywhere. Ethan stepped inside cautiously, his bat at the ready. Riley found a backpack behind the counter and began stuffing it with whatever supplies she could find, bandages, painkillers, anything useful. Ethan knelt by a shelf and picked up a half-empty water bottle. He handed it to Mr. Grayson. Drink. You need it. The old man took it with shaking hands. Then, something rustled in the back of the store. Ethan froze. Riley's hand went to her knife. A soft, ragged breath. Someone, or something, was in here with them. Ethan gripped his bat tighter. And then, from the darkness, came a whisper. Help me. Ethan's eyes widened. That wasn't an infected. It was a survivor. But was it someone they could trust? The whisper sent a chill down Ethan's spine. Help me, the voice was weak, strained, and coming from the back of the pharmacy. Riley's grip tightened on her knife. She shot Ethan a wary glance, silently asking if they should investigate or leave. Ethan took a slow step forward. Who's there? He whispered. A pause. Then a cough. Please, don't leave me. Riley exhaled sharply. This is a bad idea. But Ethan couldn't ignore someone who might be hurt. Against his better judgment, he moved past the overturned shelves toward the back of the store. Riley sighed but followed, keeping her weapon ready. Mr. Grayson stayed near the entrance, his frail body trembling. In the dim light, Ethan saw a woman sitting against the wall, her clothes stained with blood. She looked to be in her early 20s, her dark hair matted with sweat. She clutched her side, wincing. Ethan knelt beside her. "Are you hurt?" She nodded weakly and removed her hand. A deep gash ran across her ribs. "Not bitten," she added quickly. "Just cut myself running from those things." Riley wasn't convinced. "You sure? Because if you turn on us..." "I swear," the woman gasped. "I just need help." Ethan pulled out the first aid kit he had scavenged earlier. He unwrapped a bandage and pressed it against her wound. "What's your name?" "Lena." She winced as he tightened the bandage. "Thank you." Ethan glanced at Riley, but she still looked suspicious. "We can't stay here long." "I know," Lena whispered. "But I have information. Something that can help you." Riley folded her arms. "Yeah? And why should we trust you?" Lena hesitated. "Because I know where a military supply drop is." That caught their attention. Ethan frowned. "A supply drop?" Lena nodded weakly. The military dropped crates full of food, medical supplies, and weapons at key locations before things got really bad. Most people didn't make it to them. But I know where one is, untouched. Riley narrowed her eyes. "And you're just giving us this information?" Lena looked at Ethan, desperation in her eyes. "If I don't get somewhere safe soon, I won't make it. If I help you, you help me. Fair trade, right?" Ethan glanced at Riley. He could already see the conflict on her face. "This could be a trap," Riley whispered. "She could have people waiting to ambush us." Ethan sighed. "And what if she's telling the truth? We need supplies." Mr. Grayson spoke up from the entrance. "We can't stay here much longer. Those creatures will find us." Riley exhaled. "Fine. But if she tries anything," she tapped the hilt of her knife. Lena gave a weak smile. "You won't regret this." They moved quickly through the streets, keeping to the shadows. The city was still crawling with the infected, but Lena led them through back alleys, avoiding the worst of it. "The drop site is in an abandoned subway station," she explained. "A few blocks from here. The military never retrieved it." Ethan found himself believing her. She knew the city well, guiding them through collapsed buildings and ruined storefronts with ease. Riley, however, still wasn't convinced. As they approached the subway entrance, she whispered to Ethan, "Something's off." "What do you mean?" "She's too confident. If she's been running for her life, why does she seem so sure about where to go?" Ethan wanted to dismiss Riley's paranoia, but something gnawed at him. Then, as they reached the entrance, Lena slowed. She hesitated, glancing at the shadows beneath the stairwell. Riley saw it too. "Wait," Riley muttered. Too late. Figures emerged from the darkness, 5 men, armed with makeshift weapons. A trap. Lena backed away, guilt on her face. I didn't want to do this, but I had no choice." The leader of the group, a man with a jagged scar across his cheek, grinned. "Nice work, Lena. You brought us more supplies than we expected." Ethan cursed under his breath. Riley pulled her knife, but the men already had their weapons drawn. Scarface smirked. "Now, let's not make this messy." Lena looked at Ethan, regret in her eyes. "I'm sorry. I really am." Ethan clenched his fists. They had trusted her. And now, they were trapped. Ethan's grip tightened on his bat as he assessed the situation. 5 men, all armed, knives, pipes, a rusty crowbar. Scarface, the leader, stood at the front, his smirk growing as he watched Ethan and Riley tense up. Lena wouldn't meet Ethan's eyes. She had betrayed them, but something about her posture told him she wasn't proud of it. Riley, however, was seething. "You're scum," she spat at Lena. Lena flinched but said nothing. Scarface chuckled. Now. No need for insults. We just want what you have. Hand over your weapons, your food," and his eyes flicked to Mr. Grayson, who was leaning against the wall, breathing heavily. "The old man, and we'll let you live." Ethan's blood ran cold. "What?" Scarface shrugged. "Fresh meat is fresh meat. The city's running out of supplies. We gotta eat." Mr. Grayson inhaled sharply. You're eating people?" Scarface grinned, flashing yellow teeth. "It's survival, old man." Riley's hand shot to her knife. "I'd rather die than give you anything." Scarface sighed. "I was hoping you'd cooperate." "Oh well." He snapped his fingers. The closest thug lunged. Riley reacted instantly. She sidestepped and drove her knife into the man's stomach. He gasped, eyes wide, as blood dripped from his mouth. She yanked the blade free, and he crumpled. Chaos erupted. Ethan swung his bat just as another man charged at him. The weapon connected with a sickening crack, sending the attacker sprawling. Mr. Grayson stumbled back as a third man grabbed his arm. The old man struggled, but he was weak. Lena moved without thinking. She grabbed a loose brick and smashed it against the thug's head. The man staggered, releasing Mr. Grayson. Riley turned to her. "Now you grow a conscience?" "I never wanted this." Lena snapped. Scarface, furious, pulled a pistol from his belt. "Enough." Ethan froze. The bat in his hands suddenly felt useless. A gun changed everything. Scarface aimed at Riley first. "Drop the knife." Riley clenched her jaw but let the weapon fall. "Now the bat." Ethan hesitated but did the same. Scarface smirked. "Good. Now, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna hand over your supplies." And then... A guttural growl echoed from the street. Everyone turned. A horde of infected stumbled toward them, drawn by the noise of the fight. Scarface cursed. "Shit. Take them in." Before he could finish, Lena moved. She lunged at him, grabbing his wrist and yanking the gun downward. The shot went off, the bullet ricocheting off the concrete. Riley didn't waste a second. She dove for her knife, slashing at the nearest thug's leg. Ethan grabbed his bat and swung wildly, catching another in the jaw. The infected were nearly upon them. Scarface shoved Lena away and turned to run, but the creatures were too close. A decayed woman tackled him, her rotten teeth sinking into his shoulder. He screamed. The other thugs panicked, trying to flee, but the alleyway was too narrow. The undead swarmed them, dragging them down one by one. Ethan grabbed Mr. Grayson. "Move!" They ran toward the subway entrance. Riley kicked open the rusted gate, and they hurried down the stairs. Lena followed, panting. Riley spun to face her, knife raised. "Why the hell should we let you live after what you did?" Lena put her hands up. "I saved you. After setting us up." Riley snapped. Ethan stepped between them. "We don't have time for this. The infected will be down here any second." Riley glared but relented, lowering the knife. They turned and ran deeper into the subway tunnels, the echoes of the dying men's screams fading behind them. The city above was lost. And now, the darkness awaited. The stale air of the subway tunnels was thick with dust and decay. Ethan's breath came in short gasps as he helped Mr. Grayson down the cracked steps. Behind them, the distant echoes of the undead feeding on Scarface's men sent chills through his spine. Riley kept her knife ready, her eyes locked onto Lena. "You so much as breathe wrong, I'll finish what Scarface started." Lena, still shaken, didn't argue. "I didn't want this," she whispered. "They forced me." "No excuses," Riley snapped. Ethan ignored the tension between them and focused ahead. The subway station was in complete darkness. The overhead lights were long dead, leaving only faint beams of light filtering through cracks in the ceiling. Water dripped somewhere, the sound unnervingly loud in the eerie silence. "This way," Lena said, taking the lead. Riley scoffed. "We're still following her." "Brilliant." Ethan sighed. "She's the only one who knows where the supply drop is." Riley muttered something under her breath but kept moving. They reached the bottom of the stairs and stepped onto the platform. A train sat motionless on the tracks, its windows shattered, the metal rusted from years of neglect. Graffiti covered the walls, some of it scrawled in desperate messages. "No way out. They're in the tunnels. Don't trust anyone." Mr. Grayson wheezed. "How far is this supply drop?" Lena pointed toward the tunnel ahead. "Just past the next station." Ethan peered into the tunnel's darkness. The thought of walking through that pitch-black abyss sent a wave of unease through him. "We have no light." "I have a lighter," Lena offered. Riley rolled her eyes. "Oh great, a flickering flame. That'll keep us safe." "It's better than nothing," Ethan said. Lena flicked the lighter on, the tiny flame barely illuminating a few feet ahead. They stepped into the tunnel, the walls tight around them. The darkness felt alive, pressing in from all sides. A distant sound echoed through the tunnel, something moving. "Keep walking," Ethan whispered. They moved carefully, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Dust swirled in the air as they passed the lifeless train cars. Then Ethan smelled it. Rot. Something was ahead. Lena stopped suddenly. "Wait." A low growl rumbled through the tunnel. Then, movement. The darkness shifted. A figure lunged from the shadows. Ethan barely had time to react before the creature was on him, its rotting hands clawing at his face. He shoved it back, swinging his bat wildly. The impact sent the infected stumbling, but another growl followed. There were more. "Run!" Riley shouted. They bolted, their feet pounding against the tracks. The lighter flickered as Lena tried to keep it steady, but the flame wasn't enough to see the creatures clearly. Shadows lunged at them from the sides. Riley slashed at one with her knife, its shriek echoing in the tunnel. Lena tripped. Ethan grabbed her, yanking her forward. The station was close, he could see the faint outline of the platform ahead. "Almost there," he shouted. They scrambled onto the next platform, panting. The infected hesitated at the edge of the light, snarling. Then, as if repelled by something, they backed away into the darkness. "What the hell was that?" Ethan gasped. Lena wiped sweat from her face. "Some of them, they stay in the tunnels. Like they're different." Mr. Grayson slumped against the wall. I can't run like this much longer." Ethan turned to Lena. "Where's the supply drop?" She pointed toward a metal door at the end of the platform. "There." Riley didn't waste time. She ran to it and tugged the handle. Locked. "Damn it." Ethan searched the area. "There has to be another way in." Lena hesitated. "There is, but it's risky." Riley gave her a sharp look. "Oh, now you care about our safety?" Lena ignored her. "There's a maintenance tunnel that leads behind the storage room. But it runs deeper into the subway. And if those things are down there..." Ethan exhaled. They had no choice. "Lead the way." Lena nodded, though fear was clear in her eyes. They stepped into the maintenance tunnel, the air growing colder. Somewhere ahead, something breathed. And it wasn't human. The maintenance tunnel was suffocatingly narrow, the walls closing in on them as they moved deeper underground. Lena's lighter flickered in her hand, casting long, shifting shadows. The air smelled damp, laced with something worse, rot. Ethan led the way, gripping his bat tightly, every step slow and deliberate. Riley followed closely, knife ready, her body tense. Mr. Grayson struggled to keep up, his breath heavy and ragged. Lena paused at an old rusted door along the tunnel wall. "This should lead behind the storage room," she whispered. "The supply drop should be just past here." Riley tested the handle. Locked. Figures. Ethan inspected the hinges. We can pry it open, but it'll make noise. Lena chewed her lip. We don't have a choice. Ethan nodded and wedged his bat between the door and the frame, straining as he forced it open. The metal groaned loudly, the sound echoing down the tunnel. Then, something moved. Not behind the door. Behind them. A wet, dragging sound. A low, rasping breath. Lena's lighter flickered. In that brief glow, something massive shifted in the darkness. Ethan barely had time to process it before the flame went out. A deafening screech filled the tunnel. Move! Ethan yelled. The door finally gave way, and they stumbled inside. Riley slammed it shut behind them just as something slammed against the other side. The force nearly knocked her over. Ethan backed away, his heart pounding. What the hell was that? Lena's hands trembled as she relit the lighter. That wasn't normal. Mr. Grayson, hunched over and gasping for air, whispered, "It wasn't just a zombie." Another impact shook the door. The creature on the other side growled, a guttural, unnatural sound. It wasn't just trying to get in, it was thinking, testing the barrier. Ethan knew they didn't have much time. "Where's the drop?" he asked, forcing himself to focus. Lena turned, pointing ahead. There. The storage room was filled with old, rusted shelves, but at the center stood a metal crate with a faded military logo on the side. Riley rushed to it and pried the lid open. Inside, stacked neatly, were supplies, canned food, water bottles, med kits, and guns. Riley breathed. Ethan grabbed a rifle and checked the ammo. Fully loaded. Lena pulled out a med kit and turned to Mr. Grayson, who was now sitting against the wall. "Let me help you." He nodded weakly. His face was pale, his breathing labored. Riley strapped a pistol to her belt and looked at Ethan. "If we're gonna make it out of here, we need a plan." Ethan nodded. "We can't go back the way we came." The door rattled again. "Yeah, no kidding." Lena wiped sweat from her brow. "There's another exit. A tunnel that leads to a maintenance stairwell. It'll take us to street level." Ethan glanced at Mr. Grayson. "Can you walk?" The old man inhaled shakily. "I don't have much choice, do I?" A crack split the air. The door was breaking. The thing outside wasn't giving up. Riley cocked her pistol. Time to move. They gathered as many supplies as they could carry and hurried to the back of the storage room. Lena found another rusted door and pushed it open. The tunnel beyond was narrow and winding, but it was their only chance. As they stepped inside, Ethan looked back. The door behind them burst open. For the first time, he saw it. The thing that had been hunting them. It was taller than any human, its limbs unnaturally elongated. Its skin was stretched tight over its bones, its mouth too wide, filled with jagged, yellow teeth. And its eyes, glowing, hollow pits, locked onto him. Ethan didn't think. He ran. Behind them, the creature let out a high-pitched screech and lunged into the tunnel. Ethan could hear it chasing them, its claws scraping against the walls. Lena screamed. The stairwell was just ahead. Ethan turned, raised the rifle, and fired. The shot echoed, the muzzle flash illuminating the tunnel for a split second. The creature dodged, its movements unnatural, unpredictable. Riley fired next. This time, a bullet tore through its shoulder. It barely flinched. Ethan grabbed Mr. Grayson and shoved him toward the stairs. "Go! Go!" They scrambled upward. The creature snarled, slamming into the walls, clawing its way after them. Then, light. They burst through a metal door and stumbled onto the streets. The sun was rising. Behind them, the creature lunged. But the moment it hit the sunlight, it stopped. Its screech turned into a low, guttural growl. It hesitated, stepping back into the shadows. Riley panted, still gripping her gun. It won't come out." Ethan, catching his breath, watched as the thing retreated. It didn't leave. It just waited, lurking in the darkness. Lena swallowed hard. It's not just a zombie. Mr. Grayson wiped sweat from his brow. Then what is it? Ethan had no answer. But one thing was clear. The infected weren't the only monsters left in this city. The sunlight cast long shadows across the ruined cityscape as Ethan, Riley, Lena, and Mr. Grayson stood just outside the maintenance stairwell, their breaths ragged from the escape. Behind them, in the darkness of the subway, the thing watched. It lingered at the threshold, its hollow, glowing eyes locked onto them. But it did not step forward. Riley tightened her grip on the pistol. It won't come out. Ethan swallowed hard. It's afraid of the light. Mr. Grayson, still catching his breath, wiped sweat from his brow. Then we need to move before the sun goes down. Ethan scanned the street. They were back on ground level, but the city was far from safe. Abandoned cars lined the road, their doors left open, signs of hasty evacuations. The distant, guttural moans of the undead echoed through the air. Lena pointed ahead. There's an old radio station a few blocks from here. I heard some survivors broadcasting from there last week. If we can make it, maybe we'll find others. Riley scoffed. And if it's already overrun? Lena hesitated. Then at least we'll have higher ground. We can signal for help. Ethan nodded. It's our best shot. They moved quickly, weaving through the streets, keeping low to avoid drawing attention. The occasional zombie shuffled aimlessly, oblivious, until one of them stepped on a shattered bottle. Crunch. A nearby infected snapped its head in their direction, its dead eyes locking onto them. It let out a hungry screech. The sound was like a dinner bell. From the alleyways, side streets, and ruined buildings, more undead stirred. Riley cursed. They heard that. Ethan raised his rifle. Run. They sprinted down the street, the undead pouring into the road behind them. Lena pointed to an overturned bus. Through there. They vaulted over debris, crawling through the broken windows of the bus to create a barrier. The undead slammed against the metal, snarling and clawing. Go! Keep moving! Ethan shouted. The radio station was in sight now, a 3-story brick building, its large tower still intact. But something was wrong. The front door was open. And blood smeared the entrance. Riley hesitated. This is a bad idea. Ethan glanced back. The horde was closing in. We don't have a choice. They rushed inside. The lobby was trashed, papers scattered, furniture overturned, blood smeared across the walls. A body lay near the front desk, its throat torn open. Mr. Grayson gritted his teeth. We're not alone. A noise upstairs. A slow, dragging sound. Something was still here. Lena motioned toward the stairwell. The broadcast room is on the 3rd floor. If we can get up there, maybe the equipment still works. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. Stay quiet. They crept upstairs, stepping over broken glass and discarded equipment. The 2nd floor was eerily silent, desks abandoned mid-work, monitors shattered. Then, a thud from above. Riley froze. That's not a zombie. A low, guttural growl followed. Ethan's blood ran cold. He knew that sound. It was the thing from the subway. But how? They reached the 3rd floor, the hallway stretching toward a metal door labeled broadcast room. The sound of static crackled faintly from inside. Ethan turned the handle. Locked. Lena paled. Someone's inside. A deep, guttural screech echoed from the stairwell. Then, footsteps, fast, heavy, inhuman. Riley slammed her fist against the broadcast room door. If someone's in there, open up. We're not infected. No answer. The creature was coming. Ethan raised his rifle. Get behind me. The thing emerged from the stairwell. It was bigger than before, its skin stretched even tighter, its mouth widening unnaturally. The dim light caught the blood dripping from its claws. Riley fired. The bullet hit its shoulder, but it barely flinched. It charged. Ethan fired next, aiming for the legs. The creature stumbled but didn't fall. Lena pounded on the door. "Please! Let us in." A sudden click. The door creaked open, and a figure pulled them inside just as the creature lunged. The door slammed shut. They collapsed inside the broadcast room, panting. The room was dimly lit, filled with old radio equipment. A man stood before them, middle-aged, rough beard, tired eyes. He held a shotgun, aimed at the door. "You brought that thing here?" he demanded. Ethan caught his breath. "We didn't have a choice." The creature slammed against the door, the wood splintering. The man muttered a curse. "It won't hold for long." Ethan turned to the radio equipment. "Can this thing still send a signal?" The man hesitated. Then, with a nod, he rushed to the controls, flipping switches. Static crackled. He grabbed the microphone. "If anyone can hear this, we need immediate evac. The city is lost. Repeat, survivors in the old radio station. We need extraction now." A voice crackled back. "Copy that. Hold your position. ETA, 5 minutes. 5 minutes." The door splintered. The thing screeched. Ethan gritted his teeth. "We hold the line." Riley cocked her gun. "Let's kill this bastard." The final battle had begun. Epilogue. The chopper arrived just as the radio station door gave way. The thing lunged, but Ethan and Riley unloaded their weapons, driving it back. As the rotors thundered overhead, a rope ladder dropped. One by one, they climbed. The thing leaped, clawing for Ethan. But the first rays of sunrise peeked over the skyline. The creature's skin began to burn. It shrieked in agony, writhing in the daylight, before collapsing into the rubble below. As the chopper soared above the ruined city, Ethan watched the streets disappear beneath him. They had survived. But the world was forever changed. And the nightmares were just beginning. The end.